Welcome to the League of Women Voters Andover North Andover Candidates Forum. We are coming to you live from the North Andover CAM Community Media Center at 70 Main Street. Brian Fraser, Gabby Griffiths, Bill Roberts, and the crew here, Kathy, Nate, Sayan, and Elise, and the staff here would be happy to have visitors. So anyone can become a member of NACAM and support the work they do here. They offer many programs for students and adults alike. The crew, but also volunteers, make the shows happen, and the doors are open. So please stop in at any time or feel free to make an appointment. In fact, our local league is a member. Also, NACAM is looking for input from you, from the citizens, about North Andover CAM. So please take some time, if you have it, to complete a brief survey. There is a QR code on your screen, I believe, that will pop up. Or you can visit their website, northandovercam.org, and you will see a button at the top of the home page. The survey is there to help provide feedback to them, to help them support our community with their programming. So if you have a minute, please take that survey. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization for anyone, which encourages informed and active participation in government. And we are celebrating 102 years of active participation this year. Tonight's forum is part of our voter education efforts, and we are actively looking for new members to help with events just like this one. It's a busy election year, so if getting information out to voters, helping on election day are things you're interested in, please check out our information, which I believe they're going to show on your screen. Okay, and you can contact us through our email address, league@lwv-andovers.org. Those go to Caroline Cole, our president, so she will respond to you if you have questions. We have received many questions from the public tonight, including many from the 8th graders at the North Andover Middle School who are studying civics, and also from a high school government class. So I would like to take a brief moment to say thank you to Principal George Gonsalves, Patrick McGravy, the 8th grade staff and students, and to Principal Jackson, Diane Freyermuth, and her students. You will hear some of their questions as well as questions from the citizens here tonight. You can also send us questions if you are watching live right now. You can send those to lwvana questions@gmail.com, lwvana questions@gmail.com. So send those in now if you would like to us to read those to the candidates this evening. We will try to ask as many as we can and cover as many topics as we can. Okay. So again, thank you all for being here in the studio. Thank you for watching at home. And we will now begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. So please rise as you are willing and able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I will now introduce our moderator for the evening, Ellen Hardy, who resides in Westford and has been a member of the Westford League of Women Voters for 55 years, which is quite inspiring. And she was also served as their town moderator. So we are very grateful to have you here, Ellen, this evening. Welcome.
Thank you all for being here in person, and thank you for those of you who are watching at home. When Heather suggests that you email in your questions, be sure you only do that if it happens to be Thursday the 10th of March. Otherwise, this is a rebroadcast and we're not here to take your questions. We're going to start with hearing from the candidate for selectman re-election to your select board, Rosemary Connolly Smedley. She's not able to be here tonight, but we were fortunate to have Heather sit down with her and make a tape of her thoughts about her campaign for re-election for the select board. So at this point in time, I will ask that the film of that interview be shown so that you can meet Rosemary Smedley. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Heather McNeil. I'm a member of our local League of Women Voters of Andover, North Andover. And I am here joined today by our unopposed candidate for Select Board, Rosemary Smedley. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, and Rosemary will be making a statement and answering some questions from voters. So Rosemary, you have 2 minutes for your statement.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Rosemary Connolly Smedili, and I'm running for Select Board. First, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and CAM for sponsoring this debate, and you at home for tuning in. I am passionate about the town of North Andover and the quality of life issues that are important to every citizen, from our children to our seniors. When I first joined the board, the town was running deficits, failing infrastructure, and talk of overrides. We are now improving our infrastructure without overrides. We built up our reserves and have the highest rating by our bond agencies, a AAA. We have a lot of proposed changes coming to North Andover that need careful scrutiny not to affect the quality of life we have come to enjoy. I feel very strongly that North Andover should maintain its historic and rural character, working in concert with the residents and businesses so we all can thrive and be proud of our town. The town and its citizens have been through a lot these past few years, with the Columbia gas fires, with COVID, working and schooling from home, rebuilding our lives, jobs, and income. But I've never been so proud of my town at the way we all pulled together. I'm running because we have several unfinished projects in North Andover that the townspeople supported and I have assisted in, such as enacting the Amazon agreement with almost $9 million in benefits and funds to the town, such as furniture for our new senior center, a STEP program for our schools, tree planting, sewer infrastructure expansion project, and 1,500 jobs and more. A few other very important projects are the new senior center, school repairs and improvements, sidewalk connectivity, roads, and more, all through careful planning and no overrides. Finally, a very important issue is the proposed Royal Crest development that will impact Route 114, the main road in and out of North Andover. Needs a very high level of scrutiny, with the final decision decided by the voters at town meeting. You are the legislator. It's your say at the end of the day on this project. So town meeting is very important for all of us to attend. Thank you.
Wonderful. So now we have some questions. So we received several questions from not only citizens, but also from students at the North Andover High School in government class and from the 8th graders at the middle school, which is
Great.
wonderful. So since you mentioned Royal Crest, there were some questions from a high school student as well as from a citizen about growth in town. And how would you characterize the growth in town? And there seems to be some concern about the town becoming overwhelmed. So can you address that concern as well as talk about the growth?
I think it's a concern that really just about all the citizens in town are concerned about. The growth needs to be done in such a way that it doesn't impact the quality of our lives in the town of North Andover. I think major concerns, I think, as I mentioned, the Royal Crest project, is the traffic. It's the main road. When you look at North Andover, we are a big rectangle. Route 114 starts in Middleton and ends up pretty much in Lawrence, but it does veer over into 125, which is Haverhill, and I think that is the biggest problem. The other problem is there will be properties that might either be taken or a good portion of their front lawns taken. It's a big quality of life issue, and it's got to be done right.
Okay. And just as a follow-up to that, and this can be just a quick answer, specifically around the Royal Crest project, do you support tax breaks designed to attract development such as that one?
I would say on that particular project, no, I do not. We do, and I've written TIFs. TIFs are where you try to get businesses to grow, and then they add in construction, so you really aren't really losing much in taxes in order to create jobs and so forth and so on. But this project is cumbersome as it is, and I don't think a tax break is probably something that the citizens would want to give.
There were also several questions about town infrastructure. There were questions that involved roads not being properly or sidewalks not being properly cleared in winter, missing or disconnected sidewalks, not having enough crosswalks around the schools, potholes. So what role does the select board play in making decisions about the infrastructure of our town, and what are some of the current plans?
Well, the biggest thing that role that we play is to put that as a high priority goal for the town manager, who will then direct it to the head of DPW. There is problems with it. The Columbia gas problem was certainly added to our burden getting not only roads but sidewalks repaired. So what our DPW did, they put together a big study to see where we will also be opening up the roads and sidewalks for water and sewer, because you don't want to fix the roads and then got to dig it up again. And in some of our neighboring communities, they did run into that. It was done more than once. And the other problem with that, too, is the burden on the neighborhoods, that they're just under construction all the time. And as a result of that, it's taking a little bit longer, but it's high on our list of things that need to be done. There is a sidewalk connectivity. Yes, we do want crosswalks around the schools for safety, and potholes are always, it's a never-ending problem. But we're on it, we're paying attention, we're asking the questions. Thank you for asking that.
Good. Yeah, that was a popular topic.
And I understand it. I drive the roads and look at the potholes and, gee, look at this, it's not been done yet, that kind of, I'm doing the same thing, so I get it.
Another question is about the tax burden, because taxes and costs are big on people's minds. And the tax burden is shared between residential, commercial, industrial, and personal properties.
Exactly
and that
right.
is right?
Yeah.
And so what are the factors you consider when you are considering how the burden is shared among people in the town?
Well, years ago, residential property seemed to be rising faster than the commercial did. There are a variety of reasons, but the problem between residential and commercial, they are evaluated totally different. And for the commercial, it's basically on their income. They also include their equipment, whereas homes are based on what the market's doing. So we had a tendency to have residential taxes going up with a higher percentage than our commercial. So what we did is we did reset that. We did reset it with our shift, which is very confusing, and if anybody wants a better explanation, they certainly can call me. So we shifted a little bit more of the burden to commercial, which I thought was extremely fair, because they were not being assessed the same way. That is a very difficult thing when you're trying to determine how to be fair, and it's always difficult when you know, even though it's under 2.5, is to be raising somebody's taxes and having them pay more. It's not easy. So.
Yeah, that is a difficult one. And shifting gears a little bit, one of the other big things that's on everyone's mind is the facilities master plan 2. So what are just some of your general thoughts about that plan?
Well, I will tell you, this board, and under the direction of our town manager, is really working hard to go to our long-range plans and our facility master plan. We just had a meeting about it the other day. We're working very hard. We're working with the schools. And the beauty of all the planning that we're doing is, and I'm very proud of this, is we've got it planned and spaced out in such a way that there should be no call for overrides. And especially in this environment right now where everything's going up, I think it's even more important. So if we plan well, over the next 5 years, we should get a lot of things in place and not call for overrides. But it means we got to stick to being very rigid and strict onto what we're doing. But that is the plan as of right now.
Okay, very good. And just a quick ending question here. You mentioned some of the favorite parts of your job. If you wanted to add to that, you can. But also another question was, what is one of the hardest things about your job as a select board member, and how do you try to push through those kind of tough conversations or decisions?
Well, the hardest thing, of course, is sometimes it's government. It takes longer. It's no matter what plan we're doing, there is the discussion phase at town meeting, and then whether or not it passes, and then we have design. It could take years to get things done, and I understand that people are impatient. And then the other factor is not having it cost a lot on the burdens. I mean, everything is going up. all over the world, especially right now, and that it's hard. I mean, I'm a homeowner. I have kids that I, needed to be educated, and thank goodness they were. That I get it. I totally get it. So that's always difficult. And I can answer one of my favorite things
Sure,
in one
go
of my
ahead.
notes when we're ready. So, I believe that I have the experience and the historical knowledge to serve the people of North Andover. I am willing to speak for the people, and I have the desire to serve, whether it's a big issue or small. One of my favorite things about serving is when someone calls very upset about an issue, it's something that affects them, and I tell them. One was actually over plowing. So that a lot of snow was being pushed up onto this lovely lady's property, and she was absolutely in tears. And I said to her, I told her, don't worry, I'm going to take care of that for you. I can address that, and but I can't fix everything, but I can address that. And that made me so happy when someone's so upset, it's like the quality of their life is affected by this issue. And when I can step in and say, don't worry, I'm going to make some phone calls, and we're going to fix that for you. And that just brings me such great joy. And they call you back, and they're like all excited and thank this one. So it's great. But having said that, I really do want to serve. I really do love my job most days. So on occasion, there's a day or two that I don't like. But so I am respectfully asking for your vote. You only have to watch the news to know that our freedoms are being eroded all over the world. We need to protect and preserve our freedom. So please vote. Do it for our town. Do it for your family. And please vote for me, Rosemary Connolly Smedili, for Select Board on Tuesday, March 29th. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. It's always fun.
Good.
So welcome back to the studio. We have heard the interview from the incumbent member of the Select Board who was not able to join us tonight, and thus she was kind enough to do that interview with League member Heather McNeil earlier in this week. Now in the studio we do have with us live Steve Long, who is an incumbent on the Housing Authority, and he is not opposed, but he has 2 minutes to tell us why he wants to be reelected to the Housing Authority. So I turn the microphone over to you, Steve. It's all yours.
Hi, I'm Steve Long. I've lived in town all my life, and I currently serve on the Housing Authority. I was appointed at first by the selectmen to fill out the term of Mrs. O'Connor, who passed away, and I've been elected a couple of times since, and I'm up for re-election. Like I said, I was born and raised in town. I graduated North Andover High School in 1969. I then joined the Marine Corps. I served for 2 years. I was honorably discharged in 1972 as a Lance Corporal. I came home. I met my lovely wife, Susan. We were married in '74. We have 3 children. My son, Steve Jr., is a math teacher at North Andover High School. My son Chris works for the North Andover DPW. My daughter Megan is a 5th grade teacher at the Franklin School. I have 5 grandchildren, Billy, Jack, Patrick, Timmy, and Nora. Hi, kids. And I am the oldest of 7 children. I have 4 sisters and 2 brothers. My mother is still alive. Hi, Ma. And what else was I going to say? And I would appreciate your vote to keep doing what I'm doing. If one of you vote for me, then I guess I'll be able to keep doing that. So thank you. And I enjoy working with the people I do at the Housing Authority. We have a great board, and we have a great maintenance staff, and we have a great office staff. And I cherish living in this town, and I would love to see more people get involved in running this town. So, thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
We have questions from students as well as from other voters, or from voters. So the first is a question that was presented by a student at the North Andover Middle School. What plans or new ideas do you want to implement to help families that are unable to afford housing in North Andover?
I would love to be able to build some more places from scratch, but that's virtually impossible these days with the price of land. So what we've done is modernized as much as we could and made safer, cleaner, and more modern the units that we do have. We have 400 approximately units that we're responsible for, a couple of hundred state units, 100 federal units, and approximately 100 Section 8 units. And it keeps us busy, and I'd like to keep doing that. And like I said, I wish we could build some more places, and if we partner with a few other, there are some plans out there to get moving on some of those things, and hopefully we're successful doing that.
Thank you.
Yep.
The students at North Andover Middle and High School want to know, what do you feel the Housing Authority should play, what role do you feel the Housing Authority should play in the development of Royal Crest or any other apartment complex being planned to include affordable units?
That would be terrific. I believe in the 40B program.
Maybe you could just let people know what that is, Steve, for people who don't speak that vocabulary.
Well, it's a program that allows people. It allows building below market rate apartments in a town, so that everyone from every kind of a income level can share in living in nice communities like North Andover. And I think that the housing authorities should be behind that 100%.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A voter has written in, the mission of the North Andover Housing Authority is, quote, to promote adequate, safe, and affordable housing, economic opportunities, and a suitable living environment free from discrimination. You've mentioned that building new housing is perhaps not an option, but so as an incumbent, what ways do you see that this role of the Housing Authority can be carried out in terms of its written mission?
Well, that's a great question. In North Andover, we have one of our complexes is designated as a family housing complex. And with our partnership in North Andover with the community, the CPC committee, the Community Preservation Committee, they've been great partnering with us, allowing us to modernize these apartments that we have. We have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments down there. Those are the only multi-bedroom apartments we have. And so there are children involved at the family housing, obviously. And right now we are in the midst of redoing the kitchens and the bathrooms in those units. We've been stymied a little bit by the COVID because we can't go into the apartments all the time and do what we want to do. All the tradesmen can't. But as soon as the COVID's over, we're really going to push forward with that.
Okay. This may be from one of those children who live in that housing, because this is a student at North Andover Middle School who says dogs are not allowed as pets in the public housing located in North Andover. How can this be changed?
I would say maybe get a fish instead of a dog. I don't mean to be flip, but dogs.
Has there been discussion while you've been on the board about
Not
this?
really, no.
Okay.
I've never been approached by anybody to ask if they could have a dog. I'll look into that.
Okay.
I'll check that out.
That would be great.
Okay,
Thank you
yeah,
very much.
Yeah.
This is a lightning question, which means off the top of your head.
Oh, boy.
What's your favorite part about working with the Housing Authority?
The people that I'm with and being able to provide people that do need it a decent place to live. And a safe place to live. And our new executive director, Maggie Cleary, who we just got about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, she's young, she's vibrant, and she has some great ideas, and I love listening to her, what she has planned to do, and I hope I can continue to support her in what she wants to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So on March 29th, Steve Long's name will be the only one running for Housing Authority, but we still now ask him to give us a closing statement to let us know why you would like to have people's votes on that day.
A closing statement, yeah.
If you, it's up to you.
No, I would just like everyone to remember to be civil to everybody else. You know, we're all neighbors, everybody, and everybody needs a little help once in a while to have a decent place to live. And I hope and I pray that North Andover, and I know it is the kind of place that will be able to provide that for people.
Thank you very much for being here, Steve, and thank you for running. And now I would ask the audience to just stay where you are while the candidates for school committee come up to the podium. And while we're doing that, we're going to take a break to show you a video from our your new town clerk, Dawn Warren. So we will watch that while Steve leaves the podium, and we ask the school committee candidates to please come up. Thank you, Steve.
The annual town election will be held Tuesday, March 29th, with all precincts voting at the North Andover High School. The last date to register for the annual town election is Wednesday, March 9th. Town clerk's office will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. for voter registration, or residents can register online at www.registertovote.ma.com. The following seats will be on the local ballot: 1 seat for Select Board, 1 seat for School Committee, and 1 seat for the Housing Authority. Absentee ballots must be requested in writing at least 4 business days before Election Day. Applications are available for download, but a written request may be sent to the town clerk's office. Absentee ballot applications may be found online at www.sec.state.ma.us. For absentee ballots, a member of your family may also make the request on your behalf. Applications can be submitted by mail, email, or fax. If you are emailing your application, you may scan it and send it to the town clerk at townclerk@northandoverma.gov. If you are not able to print the application, you may request one be mailed to you, or you may write a letter to the town clerk requesting your ballot. Typed signatures are not allowed. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. School is open, and we ask that you try to avoid high school traffic time from 7 a.m. to 7:45 a.m.
Welcome back to the studio of NACAM. We have just listened to the message from the town clerk about the voting requirements to vote on your election on the 29th of March. Do notice that today is the 10th of March, so registration has closed, but absentee ballots are still available for those who are registered voters. Sitting at the table now, we have the 2 men who are running for the school committee in North Andover. These are Joe Hicks and Kevin Doobie. Neither is an incumbent. They are running to serve for their first terms. And I will ask Kevin Doobie to be the first to introduce himself to you with a 2-minute statement. Kevin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ellen. And I'd like to thank Heather, North Andover CAM, Brian Frazier, and the League of Women Voters for putting this on. My name is Kevin Doobie. I'm proud to appear before you tonight as your candidate for school committee. As a CPA, computer programmer, and a former small business owner, I would be in a unique position on the school committee. I've worked with and for private industry and governmental agencies in varying capacities. I understand finance, budgeting, and will work to ensure the steps we make the best financial statement for the taxpayers of North Andover. while providing the best, high-quality, rigorous, and appropriate education possible for our students. Currently, our town is evaluating school expansions totaling over $160 million over the next 15 years. These expansions are needed. The recommended plan on the timeline allows us to evaluate the best implementation and needs of our town as it progresses. Last week, it was announced that the Kitteridge project has been accepted for state MSBA funds. We need to make sure that the district abides by all of the program's requirements to acquire those funds. In my year as a North Andover Public School parent, I've met some terrific teachers, administrators, and perhaps most importantly, volunteers. I'm very passionate about volunteerism in the schools. We have a great number of parents, grandparents, and other community members willing to donate their time and talents to our schools and children. The breadth and depth of their talent is very wide and deep. I want to tap into that. Now that we've returned to the classroom, I would like to get volunteers back in the schools, everything from library duty and room parents at class parties through programs like Math Olympiad and Math Enrichment. These would provide supplemental education and enrichment to our students. This campaign is not about me. It is about you, the parents, grandparents, community stakeholders, and especially our students. I want us all to have a say in our educational system. I want to make sure that our schools are transparent and that our school committee and administration take into account the needs and concerns of the community in all decisions that are made. I promise that when I'm elected, I will hear all of your voices. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Kevin Doobie, one of the two candidates running for one seat for the North Andover School Committee. And now, Joe Hicks, would you please introduce yourself to the voters of North Andover?
Thank you, Ellen. Hello, and thank you to the League and to NACAM for producing this event. My name is Joe Corsetti Hicks, and I'm running for school committee because I want what is best for our kids. Our schools are the heart of our community. Generations of our kids and grandkids pass through these classrooms, launching bright futures from the lessons and opportunities that we provide. Like many of you, I chose to raise my family here in North Andover. And like many of you, I believe we can make our schools better. We should all endeavor to do what is best for our kids and best for our community. Experienced leadership matters. I've spent my entire career providing students with a good public school education. I've worked in the classroom as a teacher, I've mentored teachers as an instructional coach, and I now work as an administrator helping to manage a large high school. I'm also the proud parent of 2 young North Andover kids. Each role has prepared me with the insight and depth of knowledge to address the complex issues facing our schools. I know which questions to ask, and more importantly, I know how to listen. As your representative on the school committee, I will be best for our kids. I will ensure that each and every student has access to the opportunities and resources they need to succeed. I'll work to implement Facilities Master Plan 2, so that our students have a safe learning space that meets modern standards. I'll advocate for stronger literacy programming. I'll fight for funding for the art, music, and athletic programs. Every vote is an opportunity to ensure that each student is seen and every family is embraced and listened to. These last few years have been difficult for all of us, and our hardships have exposed needs in our schools we can no longer afford to ignore. No one can predict what the next 3 years will bring, but you can trust me to approach each new challenge with reason, with courage, and with empathy. No matter what, every time I vote, I will vote for what's best for kids. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. That's Joe Hicks, one of the 2 candidates for school committee. I have questions that have been sent in both by citizens as well as by students, and the first one is from a voter. Over the past 2 years, the school committee and the town have developed policies around COVID-19, including masking and testing, for example. What will guide your policy decisions around public health in our schools and for navigating future spikes in COVID transmission? Joe, we'll start with you on that, please.
Thank you, Ellen. Regardless of what might happen next with the pandemic, the thing we need to keep in mind is what is going to provide our kids with the best possible education and make sure that that is a continuous and ongoing process. It's been hard the past 2 years, and especially the past year, to have my kids in school with masks on. I was very excited today to go to school, and it was the first day we had our masks off, and I loved being able to see my students' faces for the very first time and to see some of the teachers I've met this year and their faces for the very first time. And I certainly don't want to go back to that place. I want to be able to see and appreciate my students. But as much as those things might be the things that I want, the thing that must guide us is science and data, and we must make sure that we do a good job of doing what we can do to make sure that schools stay open and our kids can continue to be educated. I've had the experience of needing to make sure that my classrooms are staffed with teachers amidst high numbers of COVID cases and teachers absent, and I certainly will do anything to make sure that our schools can stay functioning and so our kids can continue to learn, because in the end, that is what's best for our kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Doobie, what will guide your policy decisions as the school committee has to make decisions about COVID and transmission in the coming months and years?
Well, for starters, let's hope that COVID is pretty much over right now, because we're moving from pandemic to endemic. The numbers have fallen precipitously. I actually check them every day, and the number of hospitalizations are far down. And of the few that are still in the hospital, about 2/3 of them are actually in the hospital for other reasons. They're not primary for COVID. So we're looking very good, and let's hope we don't have any more spikes come next winter. If we do, we should rely on medical professionals and science to guide what needs to be done. For starters, we should always make sure we have our kids in school as much as possible, and without masks or mask optional as much as possible. However, if the medical professionals out there truly say that we need to do something because we're having a huge spike, then of course we need to do what's in the best interest for our students' health as well as their well-being. And yeah.
Thank you. This is a question that comes from the students at North Andover Middle School and the high school, and many of them had several questions around mental health issues, cyberbullying, harassment, anxiety about tests and school safety, workloads, and raised the questions of the organization RAISE, which is Respect, Achievement, Inclusion, Service, and Empathy. Do you have any plans to implement more policy that would regard promoting mental health for the students of the North Andover school system? We'll start with you on that one, Kevin, please.
The raised values are great, and they are there, and we need to, hold on for a minute. Yes, we need to make sure that we take care of our students and their mental health issues. COVID has really taken a toll on the social and emotional health of many of our students, from lack of socialization, and the youngest of our students, some of whom have never until a week ago seen a teacher's face, through high school kids that have missed so many milestones. It's important that our teachers have appropriate training to identify issues with emotional health, and it's important that our counselors are there and available and accessible should anything arise that needs to be addressed, and that parents are brought in, parents are notified of any issues that their students are experiencing, and that are brought in and make sure that they work to help their children recover appropriately.
Thank you. Joe Hicks, do you see any new policies that need to be implemented by the North Andover School Committee to deal with students' mental health?
Yeah, we know that unless a student feels safe, unless they feel embraced, that they're unable to learn. That is a basic need that all students need to have met, otherwise their learning can't happen as well as it should. I am happy with the process that the district has been making and the supports that I believe Nikki Murphy has been putting into place to help make sure our teachers and our students are receiving the supports, the social and emotional learning supports and training that they need to be successful. The past years have been hard, but one thing I've learned about my own kids and the kids around us and our kids in our town is that they are resilient and they are strong, and that the hardness of the past years has allowed us to see what the amazing things that they can still do in their perseverance. I think it's really important that as we move forward, we still look at how else we can support them, making sure we have enough school adjustment counselors as part of our programming is really important. Looking at making sure that our teachers are getting the right PD to create safe, welcoming spaces that are informed by best trauma-informed practices is really important as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was a question from the students about student mental health. This is a question from a voter who's concerned about the staff. With mounting stress on school staff leading to increase in compassion fatigue, anxiety, early retirement, and changes in profession, how would you work or advise the superintendent about retaining school staff? And Joe, we'll start with you on that one, please.
Thank you, Ellen. It's a great question. One of the things I've learned in the past 20 years working in schools is that we can't do education without teachers. They are a necessary and very vital and important part of our education system. They are the lifeblood that makes sure it all works. People go into teaching because they love it. They love being with kids and they love the work that they do. And we need to make sure that we protect and we help our teachers stay engaged with our kids in a way that makes them feel valued and seen and appreciated. One of the things we need to do is to make sure we adopt policies that give our staff the opportunity and the training they need to do the work that is before us. School is hard right now. It's been a really hard 2 years, and to continue to support our staff, they're going to need additional training with how to run a strong SEL-supported classroom. And we need to make sure that we provide that for our students because that's what's best for them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Doobie, what thoughts do you have about working with the superintendent to retain the staff and have them feel comfortable in this environment?
Well, I can state that my wife is a teacher as well, and yeah, it's been a difficult 2 years. The hybrid model was insane, especially at the elementary level. Trying to get 6-year-olds to participate in a Zoom lesson was beyond crazy. So yes, a lot of teachers had a great deal of fatigue and burnout, and need our support, and they need the community support, and parents need to remember that teachers are, in fact, human beings, that they're their neighbors, their friends, they're the people down the street, and we need to come together as a community to, embrace that and remember to treat everybody according to Ray's values. Ray's values aren't just about the kids; they're about us too. So we need to acknowledge that, remember that, and address it in our community.
Thank you. From a voter, teaching about controversial aspects of our nation's history, critical race theory, and human sexuality are just 3 of the areas of contention in public schools. Kevin, what would you use as your guide in making policy decisions around these 3 issues?
Around these 3 issues, we need to make sure that our education is bias-free, truly. Things like CRT, and appropriate. So we want to make sure that we focus on whatever we can to make sure that we're giving to students education. Controversial, there's a difference between, there's a lot of warts in U.S. history, there's a lot of warts in global history, and those should all be taught. People that don't learn history, don't learn from it. We need to learn from history to not make the same mistakes. At the same time, people are using a lot of these methods to push an agenda forward that should not be promoted in schools. Students shouldn't come home knowing what their teacher's political bias is. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Hicks, what would you use as your guide for the school committee to make policy decisions on these important issues?
I will always focus on what's best for our kids, and I think it's important that our kids know the truth of what's happened in our country. That does not mean CRT. CRT is not being taught in our schools. It's simply not happening. To say that it is would be a lie. I think it's important that we make sure that our kids know what has happened in our country. History is not just a story about or what has happened in the past. It's not even about who we are in the present. It's about what we are going to do in the future. And we can't make good choices about the society that we want to be unless we look critically at ourselves. I spent many years in the classroom talking and working with my students on things that are hard, and they are resilient, and they are able to persevere. And when given hard work to do, they are more engaged. It's more valuable to them, and it helps them do better work. They appreciate being challenged in those ways. That's what's best for our kids, to be challenged.
Yes, certainly, absolutely.
Yeah.
Please do.
Critical race theory is absolutely being taught in our public
It's
schools.
not. That's a lie.
There's
Wait, let him finish, Joe, and then you'll have a chance to respond.
There's a lesson that I was aware of intersectionality being discussed. Intersectionality being one of the core tenets of critical race theory. There was a mini biography of Kimberly Crenshaw presented. Kimberly Crenshaw was at the original meeting on critical race theory back in 1989. She also created the concept of intersectionality back in 1989. Kimberly Crenshaw is widely credited as actually having come up with the name critical race theory. So yes, absolutely, that is present. I've also seen from people have told me books from Ibram Kendi have been presented too. He is another critical race theorist. So yes, it's there. Thank you.
Joe, you can respond to that, just not
No,
argumentatively,
absolutely.
just to inform us.
Critical race theory is a graduate level concept that they talk about at the legal level among academic scholars. That is not what's being taught in our classrooms. The idea of intersectionality is the idea that my identity as a gay man and as a white man, as a Catholic raised in Connecticut and now living in Massachusetts, is very particular to me. And we combine those things together to get my unique experience in this world. Just as anyone else is going to have a unique experience, and where those things come together, that intersection is what is the idea. And I don't see the harm in allowing kids to understand the role that identity plays in the way that they see the world, and the world sometimes see in them. It empowers them to invest time in their community. It empowers them to know what role they can play in the community. It empowers them to be the very best that they can. And when we don't allow them to investigate those issues, we're taking away those opportunities. And that is a shame. There are wonderful ways for our kids to deal with hard issues that allow them to investigate who they are and how we came to be in this place and this time and the hard things that have happened to us. And that's important for us to be the very best for our kids.
That segues a little bit into a question from the students at North Andover Middle and High Schools, who mentioned not enough access to gender-neutral bathrooms and signs of disrespect during celebrations of different cultures. How would you help the North Andover Public Schools to be more welcoming if you were a member of the North Andover School Committee? Joe, would you start with that one, please?
Mm-hmm. Gender-affirming care, acknowledging that our students our trans students exist, and giving them supports and to meet their needs is absolutely essential. The idea that a young person would not be able to have a safe place to use the facilities is hurtful, and that just can't be. We are, as a district, already doing great things to make sure that our trans students are welcomed. And we need to continue to investigate how else we can do that. We do have a great policy for anti-bullying in place, and we need to make sure that that is used and that is part of our district, and that actually exists, not just on paper, but that it's lived. And we need to make sure that when signs of disrespect happen in our town and our space, that we acknowledge that those are inappropriate and hurtful. They create a space. They create derision in our community, and they alienate our citizens and our students, and that is not a place where we would want our kids to be educated. We want to make sure that our schools are a safe place for them to do the very best learning.
Thank you. So Kevin, as a member of the school committee here in North Andover, how would you help the public schools be more welcoming to all students?
Well, again, we have our raised values, and two of the most important of them are respect and inclusion, so those need to be emphasized. No student should ever be made to feel unsafe or uncomfortable based on any aspect of their identity, or their religion or their race or anything else. So yes, we need to just reinforce that all the time, and if any such issues arise, they need to be addressed. The parents need to be informed or brought in, and understood as to why this is wrong, why you don't know these things. Sometimes children will unconsciously make choices that are bad, say things that they're not thinking about, and they just need to be corrected. Sometimes that's actually malice and needs to be more deeply addressed. Either way, that's what you need to do.
Thank you. From a middle school, I'm sorry, absolutely, please, Joe. Yep,
question,
sure.
Or
Yep.
make a follow-up comment.
Yep.
I think this also bleeds over into the previous question that you had about CRT and also other controversial topics with health education. We need to make sure that our health education is also welcoming for our students, and that it's gender neutral and gender affirming, and that it recognizes that male and female are not the only two genders that exist, and that it allows all of our students to learn about their bodies and learn to be safe, so that they have an opportunity to live in this world as safely and as possible, because in the end, that's going to be best for their lives. Thank you.
Kevin, do you have anything to add to that? Or okay, thank you so much. Okay, from a middle school student, what would you do as a member of the school committee to support adding more diversity to the North Andover middle school staff? Kevin?
What would I do to add more diversity to the middle school staff?
This is from a middle school student who apparently perceives there is not enough.
Okay. In any hiring decision, especially around schools, we should be making sure that we hire the best teachers for the job. Affirmative action is a thing. It has been a thing for 20 years. If a teacher comes in that is highly qualified, that happens to be of color, then absolutely we should hire that person. I don't know right now the issues. I don't know if we have applicants that have actually applied that are qualified or not. If we're reaching out to advertising in places where we could possibly attract more people of color. Perhaps that's an issue that I'm not really aware of, but yes, absolutely.
Joe, do you know of any things that you can think of that the North Andover School Committee should be doing to get a more diverse staff at the middle school this young man woman is interested in specifically?
Yeah, I think what's important is that we acknowledge why this is an important issue, why this would matter. We have incredible diversity in our town, and we want to make sure that our schools are a place where kids see themselves, both in the people that are teaching, in the curriculum that they're using. It's important. It affirms their existence. It allows them to be valued and a part of the community. So hiring staff that is diverse is incredibly important, and we have an obligation to go out and find qualified staff. That is a mission that we need to undertake, and this is a human resources problem that needs to be tackled. If we are not diverse enough, then we need to make sure we can go and find candidates and people that would help us be a stronger and better place. And to do that, we have to, it's going to take some work. But in the end, that will be what would be best for our kids, to have staff that are as diverse as our community is.
This is a lightning question. High school students give regular reports to the school committee at their meetings about what is happening at North Andover High School. Joe, what one question might you ask back to the students?
I have two.
All right.
Actually, it might be three. What are the things that North Andover High School are doing that we should continue? What are the things that North Andover High School is doing that we should stop? And what are the things that we are doing at North Andover High School that should start? I think kids are incredibly intuitive. They are experiencing it every day, and when we listen to them and we build programming around them and their needs, education works better, and that's going to be what's best for them in their future. Thank you.
Kevin, what question would you ask back to the representative to the school committee from the school
Along the
high
same
school?
lines, are you being served? You know, how's your high school experience going? What are you missing? What don't you have? What do you have?
Mm-hmm.
What can we do better? What can we build upon? What should we stop doing? And what should we start doing?
Thank you. So the town has a facilities master plan, Roman numeral 2, which addresses many school needs. Should the school committee compress the schedule for the school renovations in this plan? Kevin?
That's me. Yes, our schools need an upgrade, and we have a plan in place that provides for that. It's a good plan, and Phase 1 takes place with no need for an override or debt exclusion, thanks to state MSBA funds for the Kitteridge Elementary Expansion Project. There are some in town that wish to accelerate all phases of the project and build it all now. This would require debt exclusions and possible overrides that would need to be approved of at a special election or next year's town election. This could cause us to miss state deadlines and the funding we are aligned for. There is also no guarantee that the town would go for it. In addition, placing unnecessary burden on our taxpayers, deviating from the current plan, could derail the entire project.
Joe, as a member of the school committee, would you work to compress the schedule for the school renovations and the master plan, please?
The plan that our town manager has presented to the school board and the community is a very smart plan. It's a very logical plan, and it is laid out based on what we can do over time, based on the debt that will be coming offline and how we can then build schools for our kiddos and the youth center and a fire station, because that's part of it as well. And that is reflective of our current capacity. And I would like to see what else we can do to increase our current capacity, because I would like things to happen sooner. It bothers me that we have non-ADA compliant water fountains and bathrooms and hallways and stairs at multiple schools. It bothers me that electrical systems are outdated. It bothers me that the Atkinson School doesn't have a sprinkler system. It bothers me that the roof at Atkinson is struggling to keep water out, and same at Kittredge. And these are things that need to happen sooner than 15 years. So we have to look for whatever opportunity there could be to make it go quicker. And avoiding an override is an important thing, because we don't want to stake our bets on something like that. And I hope that that is not something we would then have to go and ask the community for. But it might be. And if that is going to be the thing that's best for our kids, then I would advocate for that. I hope to avoid it. It's not something we'd want to do, but we might have to.
Thank you. Joe, a student at the North Andover High School, says, many towns give money to their music and fine arts programs through the school. appropriation. In North Andover, most programs for music must raise money through the North Andover Music Association to support their work. Do you have any plans, or do you support addressing this in budget discussions?
I do. I was lucky enough that I began in-school music lessons in the 4th grade with the clarinet. My teacher was Mr. Tisdale. Once a week I got to go down to the teacher's room and he met us there and I got to learn. I played all the way up through high school. I was a drum major of the marching band. It was a lovely experience. Marched through Disney World, got to play at Alice Tully Hall in Lincoln Center. And my band teacher was one of the closest teachers I had a relationship with. He was amazing and supportive of me all through my middle school and high school career. We need to do better in terms of providing our kids access to music lessons. Right now, if my 4th grader wants to take lessons, he has to somehow get to Kittredge in the morning at 7 o'clock. A little different with the COVID rules, but that's what it was. I can't do that. I have to be at work at the same time, and I can't arrange transportation for him to go back to school at the Atkinson. That's going to limit his ability to participate in lessons, so I very much would love to see more opportunities for kids to take in-school lessons. I also think it's important that we are doing more to fund our theater and our theater programs. It makes me sad that they have to fundraise to even pay for the rights to do a show. I think we can do better by providing like those simple seed costs so that students can participate in theater, because it's such an important part of what the middle school and high school experience could be. And that's what's going to be best for them and best for their future.
If I can just add on the next step to that, given Proposition 2.5 and budget limitations, what would you take away from? How would you find the money to do what you would like to do for the arts and for the theater and the schools?
Some of these things are actually really small. I mean, a music teacher could be at an additional position, which would be $60,000, but to fund a middle school musical, the rights to a show is somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000 to $1,500. That is not very much. We have a budget of $54 million. Like, that is a very small nugget of money that we should be able to do for our kids. So I'm not talking about huge things here. I'm talking about small amounts of money to allow them to do productions that all kids can get involved in.
Kevin, do you think that adding art and music back into the budget and theater should be part of budget discussions when you're on the school committee?
I think it's something that definitely should be looked at. My daughter is in the band, is in marching band. My youngest daughter is going into the 8th grade play and taking that, and was in Kittredge before COVID, used to put on The Wizard of Oz. She did that for 3 years, so we're very involved in the art and band and musical programs at North Andover Public Schools. So yes, I believe it absolutely should be looked at. I know what your next question is, and let me just answer it, that we can probably find something in the budget somewhere that we're spending money that we maybe don't necessarily need to be spending money on. You know, we can reallocate things so that maybe we could provide some funding. And, you know, as Joe said, a lot of these things aren't that expensive. And getting the community, though, too, you know, there's also hitting up your businesses and whatnot and seeing if we can fundraise in other ways as well. So, thank you.
Please, Joe. Yep.
Your last comment, sir, that actually worries me a little. I love when businesses in our community members help out, and the volunteers that exist in our school are great, and when businesses give to our schools, that's amazing. But I also worry about going to businesses to do backdoor funding for our programs when that's our obligation as a community to do things for our kids. And I greatly appreciate whenever people donate. I'm on the PTO at Atkinson. A lot of instances are very helpful in helping us raise funds for our teachers and for our schools, but we also have to be careful in terms of what our responsibility is as a school committee and what our job is to provide for our students. So I just want to keep that in mind.
Thank you. A student at North Andover Middle School, and we'll start with you on this one, Kevin, if we could.
Actually, if I may, quick.
Absolutely. Yep.
You know, any monies we can get from any source, we should always look at for the, you know, to be in the best interest of our students and the taxpayers of our community. If a business is willing to fund it, we should fund it. I'm not saying that that should be the exclusive thing. I didn't say we should take away from anything else. I said that we should explore all avenues of funding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
And now from a student at North Andover Middle School. Standardized testing from the state and the district, such as MCAS and MAP, take up a lot of school time. In your opinion, is all of that testing necessary? This is from a North Middle School student.
This is another conversation we frequently have around the house between my wife and my kids and I. The MCAS is very cumbersome. Yes, it is. Sometimes I wonder if it was actually designed that way so that people would hate it so they could get rid of it. I do recall a time in the state when we were graduating students from places like Boston Public Schools that were proven that they could not read or write, but we were giving them a diploma and moving them along their way. So we said, yes, we need standardized testing. We need something to prove that these students are actually be given proper education. Could they be reconfigured? Absolutely. But to take away completely is not a good idea.
Joe, your thoughts about those tests as an educator and as a candidate?
Yeah, standardized testing takes up a lot of time in our schools. I spend my day planning. Just last month, I helped plan our access testing in our school, and it took up a lot of time from our staff members to make sure that our kids had an opportunity to do well there. So I worry about taking that time away from instruction. I absolutely do. And I think we need to think critically about what the point of the standardized testing is, and it's to make sure that we are serving our kids well. And it's not just the growth measurement; it's not just the average in terms of how many kids are meeting needs or are proficient. It's also when we disaggregate that data that we start to learn about what else we need to do to support our kids. So I would very much love to have that time back. As a teacher, I would love to have it back. As an administrator, make things easy. But we also then need to look at a way to make sure we have the data to ensure that our kids are learning the things that they need to learn. Because in the end, if they're not learning, that's not what's best for them.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question that came from a student at North Andover Middle School, and then we'll go to your closing statement. So just to give you an idea of our time frame here. How can we have a better system when it comes to lunch waste? Food, styrofoam trays, utensils, etc. Would this be something that you could address as a member of the school committee? And I think we start with you on that one, Joe.
My daughter last week came to me and she said, I'm really concerned that we don't do the composting program anymore at Atkinson. We had it going during COVID, it got waylaid, and she really wants to have it come back. And I was so proud of her for that she understood at such an early age in 4th grade that taking care of our environment is really important. Those types of decisions, I would certainly advocate for us to have more composting, to use more biodegradable serving utensils, to make sure that we are taking care of our planet, because that's what's best for us in our future. And our food services department works really hard to make sure that they provide nutritious foods, and that would be a challenge. Not a challenge that would be hard, but I would challenge them to think about what else can we do to reduce waste as a matter of policy, and I would look to them for their advice, where they're the ones who do this every single day. So I think they would know what's best in terms of reducing our waste load.
Thank you. Kevin, how would you address this question from the middle schooler about what to do to reduce lunch waste, and you be as a school board member, please?
Well, as a member of the Sustainability Committee, I actually am very involved in that. I know the person that runs the program at the high school. It has not come back to the elementary schools yet because of COVID. They couldn't get into the schools. The high school has restarted the program, and she is working diligently to get the high schoolers to comply. I know from a high school standpoint, I've talked to some of the high schoolers themselves, and the issue revolves around the timing of lunch. The lunch time is not long enough, so a lot of them don't have the time to really walk across the cafeteria to put their stuff into, to divvy it up and whatnot, so that they feel rushed. So perhaps we could add more stations around the cafeteria. We're going to need to work with the administration, closer to the exits maybe. Getting things back into the middle school, into the elementaries and middle school would be a great step too. And so yeah, the Sustainability Committee is actually actively working on that currently.
Here, thank you. Kevin was the person who introduced himself to you first with his opening statement. So, Joe, I'm going to let you conclude with your closing statement as to why you would like the voters to choose you for the school board.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you for doing such a wonderful job moderating tonight. I believe it is clear that I am best for our kids and best for our community as a school committee member. When our schools are well supported, our children and our community thrive. As a member of the school committee, I will work tirelessly to ensure we are not only meet but surpass the highest standards of quality, from improving our facilities and curriculum to strengthening our communication. I have the knowledge and the skills to successfully lead a challenging initiative, and I know which questions to ask to ensure our plans are solid and our leaders are held accountable. Our public schools are the centerpiece of our community, the living proof of our shared commitment to excellence. Decisions we make now in support of our schools and of the next generation are our legacy. You can trust my decisions to always be informed, thoughtful, and focused on what is best for our kids. I'm Joe Hicks, and I respectfully ask for your vote on March 29th. Thank you.
Kevin Doobie, your closing statement, please.
Hi, I'd like to thank you all for being here, and I hope you've all enjoyed the debate. I am running for school committee to represent you and your children. I will be your advocate on all issues facing our schools. I will challenge the administration and evaluate every issue that is presented objectively. I will also be accessible. It's not always easy for parents with busy schedules to make it to school committee meetings. I plan to attend PTO meetings to give the parents, as well as the teachers and principals, easy access to me to discuss their concerns and needs within the respective schools. North Andover is a terrific town, and we have a great school system. I wish to continue to build upon those things that make it great, fix those things that need to be addressed, and guide the school department on the best path to the future. You can get more information on me at my website, electdoobie.com, or email me at electdoobie.com@gmail.com. electdoobie@gmail.com. I'm Kevin Doobie, and I'm asking for your vote on March 29th. Thank you.
Thank you. So this evening, the League of Women Voters of Andover and North Andover have introduced you to Rosemary Smedili, who is running for re-election unopposed to your select board, and also to Steve Long, who is running unopposed for another term on the Housing Authority. And you've just had an opportunity to hear the two members of the only contested race, which is the race for the school board, Kevin Doobie and Joe Hicks. I remind you that the election here in North Andover is going to be on the 29th, on Tuesday of March. The polls open at 7 and they close at 8 p.m. And it's imperative for you now to do your part, since these four candidates have done theirs. Please remember that democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you so very much, and good night.